And we are about to go live. Okay, here we go. All right, folks, welcome to another live stream event. My name is Tony Babarino, and I am here to bring another guest to help you guys out there, anything in the field of real estate, whether it's buying, selling, and all the little things that go with it. Some of which you don't know, some of which you do. In either case, I want to bring you some extra information. And I have a guest, and we're going to talk about something that everybody knows they should do, but nobody wants to talk about it until it's too late. And so my job here is so hopefully you'll be able to be well prepared for your friends, family, and loved ones. So when life changes, everything you leave behind hopefully can be handled nicely. So let me bring on our new guest, Kim.
Hi,
Welcome. Hi.
thank you.
Thank you for being here. Could you please let our guests out there know who you are, what you do, the company you work for, kind of let them know a little
Sure,
background about you.
sure. Well, thank you, Tony. Thank you for having me on the show. Hi, everybody. My name is Kim Dannettell, and I am the owner of Praedium Trust Services. And what I do is I am a conduit to estate planning. I work with people and help them put the framework, the architecture of their trust and their estate plan put together so that y'all can avoid probate. There's a little saying that we say, we all know it's expensive to live here in California, but try dying in California. It's very expensive if you don't do some planning. So what I do is I really educate people on the need for the trust, for the estate plan. And then I work with clients to set everything up. I'm not the attorney, I represent law firms. And then I connect the clients with the attorney to actually get the law work done, the estate plan done. And then I deliver and go through the trust, the estate plan with the clients. You guys sign it, I notarize it, and then we tell you how to fund it. And those are some very specific steps that need to be done to protect your assets for when you pass. So I make the process very simple. I talk in regular words, not in legalese, and just do everything we can to make sure that we get your assets protected so that the state of California doesn't have anything to do with your home, your businesses, your property, your assets upon passing. So, and making sure that your heirs, the people that you love, get what you want in a manner in which you want it. So,
I like to say that if they, for an example, if they don't talk to you and they don't do what you're talking
mhm.
about, by default, they hence made a decision to do nothing, and they're going to leave a train wreck of assets in the wake. And what a shame it would be, especially in Orange County and
Yes.
California. People work, they go, they struggle and suffer sometimes to spend the money for education or business or both, make all this money, get to these higher levels, acquire nice things and deservedly so. And then they
Mhm.
get to a point where something happens, divorce, death, and coma, hence the title of this interview, just as an example. And then when you're gone or you're incapacitated and can't make decisions or even wake up, your houses, your income property, your boats, your plane, your dog, something needs to govern as per your orders what happens to your cash, your gold, your jewelry, your investments, your stocks, your money, your health decisions. And when you're 28, 35, 40, 48, I would bet a lot of people, no offense to the world, but a lot of people probably don't think of it. Well, nobody wants to think of it. I don't. I don't want to know, hey, what if I go in a coma and don't wake up? I don't want to talk about when I die, what happens to my house. But if you just get it done, and have that peace of mind that you have the last word if something happens, I think
Yeah.
that's worth it.
Yes, I completely agree with you. And with COVID-19, I've had a lot of clients say, oh my goodness, I need to get this planning done now. This is a great time for people who already have a plan in place. Make sure you look at your documents and that they are updated. Your power of attorney, and that is the forms that identify who's going to pay your bills, your mortgage, make your financial decisions if you're not able to do so, your healthcare directives. Those are the people who are going to make your healthcare decisions if you're not able to do so. And you need to really make sure you also have a HIPAA document, a universal HIPAA document that legally allows your medical professionals to share your private health information with those you've identified as your healthcare agents. So if any of you out there have done nothing at all, those 3 documents, the power of attorney, the healthcare directive, and the HIPAA, I would say get those done immediately. Those are documents that need to be replaced. They aren't updated. We can help you out with that. Any law firm can help you out with that. But, we'd love to have that, offer you that service. And, we talk about, death, coma, divorce, things like that. And, a lot of people think that estate planning, trust and estate planning, it can seem very overwhelming. And they think, well, when I get older, maybe I'm not old enough, or maybe I'm not rich enough to do this. So let me tell you, this is not an old person need, and it's not a rich person need. Here in the state of California, if you own a property, whether it be residential, commercial, if you own a property and it's worth more than $55,000, which here in California, if you do own something, it is worth more than $55,000.
That's true.
Or if you have personal assets of $166,000 or more, and you pass away, and you need to get those assets to your loved ones, and you don't have a trust put in place, you're going through probate. And we talk about probate, and people don't really understand what that is all about, other than maybe they want to avoid it. But probate here in the state of California it's a court supervised process that's going to dictate who gets what and how they get it.
And it's not cheap, and it's not short.
Right. It takes 9 months to 2 to 4 years to go through probate, and your assets are frozen during that time. The state controls everything. It's costly. The fees are dictated by the state. And on average, it's on average about 6%, but the cost of probate could be 6 to 10% of the estate value. So if you had $1 million home and you owed $900,000 on it, you've got $100,000 equity. And just on the average, if you did get that 6% fee cumulatively, I mean, that's $60,000 that goes to the state of California.
Poof.
That doesn't go to your beneficiary. So, you have an unintended beneficiary named the state of California.
Oh, great.
I know, isn't that great? And that beneficiary actually gets to control everything. They call all the shots. They decide who gets paid. They actually can sell your property. So if they're in the process of settling your estate and they don't see that you have enough funds to pay your creditors and all your final expenses or their fees, they can sell the house. And they have to do it. When they do it, they can do it at a fair value, not even a fair market value. So I have clients who the home is the only thing they plan on leaving to their beneficiaries. And yet that very asset could be controlled by and sold by the state of California. So we want to disinherit California legally, morally, and ethically. And we do that through planning.
And of course, and that's just the process.
Right.
On my end, when I have to work with, let's say hypothetically, grandpa dies. Grandma passed before then, and now it's, mom and dad get the house. Let's say it's the father's father. There could be fighting, disagreements that get ugly, which, when there's major disagreements, when big money's involved, it could lead to regrets, hate, divorce, bad situation. No doubt there are times it ends well. It's a sad situation, but let's take the emotions out. You want it to end well. So I'm not a lawyer. I am not qualified to make opinions on this. I'm just going as a human being. That it sounds to me, if I had a relative who passed and everything would fall next in line to me and my wife, it's probably just simply easier for everybody if something was written in place and says, this is what happens, and to not be able to fight that. Just to say, there you go. So you have it, like I know people literally where it was like a third, and then the last third didn't go to the third child. These people were like 50 years old each. So it was a third, and the last third skipped him and went to charity. It was a black sheep of the family. It was written. They tried to fight. The one person tried to fight. They said, sorry, it's too well documented. One third, and that last third went to charity. That's it. So the person who passed literally had the last word in writing, in advance, buttoned up, because they went, for an example, to services
Right.
like you, because they wanted to do what they wanted to do with what they own. And when you own something, it sounds to me like you should have a right to dictate what to do. Now, you could do it while you're alive,
Right.
but it's safer. But what I'm hearing you say, to sum it up in a nutshell on this thought, it's safer, just even if it's secret, just
Hmm.
pay to have it all figured out, and you don't have to necessarily tell anybody. And something
Right.
happens, now your lawyer shows up, hey everybody, I have something for you and you and you. What's this? Uh-oh. Now that's what's followed. If someone doesn't do that, you've hence made a decision, let old Uncle Sam and the state get involved. Because the state of
Right.
California will rush right in and they'll solve it in, a couple of weeks instead of like, a year. And I'm
A
being
couple
sarcastic.
months. Yeah,
I know I'm
months.
being sarcastic.
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
joking. Like they're going to come in and say,
Right.
"Hello, everyone. Your mom died, and we're going to take care of this in 2 days." No, not quite. It's the
No.
opposite. They're going to
No.
say next. It's like the DMV. When someone dies and you go into probate, it's like the DMV, but worse because it's way slower and longer, and you're just a number they process, and it's going to be extremely costly. And by the time it gets to you, everything, the treasure, let's call it a treasure chest. It was this full. When you get it, it's probably this full if
Yeah.
you're lucky.
Well, yeah, and you're right. I mean, we've got what 34 million people here in the state of California, and
Yep.
AARP did a study, and they said that
Oh,
50 to 70% of people pass away without even having a will. So if you just did the
ugh,
numbers on that here in California and realize we only have so many days a year that are weekdays, so many courts, you can see really quickly how this can take a long time. But Tony, I wanted to come back. We talked about divorce and coma, and so far we've talked about what
yeah.
happens when you pass away. Let's talk about when you become incapacitated, and that's become very relevant, unfortunately,
Oh,
for a lot of
yeah.
people recently. And so, if you're married and you become incapacitated, whether it's permanent dementia, Alzheimer's, something like that, or whether it's temporarily, right? You have an
Mhm.
illness and you
It
can't
happens.
make right. If you're married, your spouse gets to continue on as though you were fine. They get to pay your bills, make your financial decisions, make your healthcare decisions. So by law, being married, that happens. But if you are divorcing, and if it's not amicable, which
Yeah.
it's very
If it
possible it's not an
if it's
amicable
like,
divorce.
oh yeah, boy, I could tell you stories for 3 hours, and I just have to be the nice guy on both sides because they look at
Yes,
me like, "Get me money," and
right.
one person
So
says, "Do this." So
yeah,
yeah,
so if you're
it could be ugly.
yeah. So if you're divorcing and let's say you get in a car accident and you're in a coma in the hospital,
Mhm.
who legally gets to make those decisions? You're still married.
Yeah.
So it would be a really good idea that if you are going through a divorce, that you talk with your attorney, get with an estate planner, so that you can get a power of attorney, a healthcare directive, and a HIPAA at a minimum, identifying who it is that you want to make those decisions for you if something happened to you during the divorce. Um, if you are single, and I'm divorced, I've got two kiddos, I've got property, and before I did my estate plan, if something happened to me and I couldn't make those decisions, I would go through what's called living probate. So basically, then the state of California would assign a conservator to me. They would make decisions and figure out who's going to make my financial decisions and those healthcare decisions, and I get to pay the state for that. And then let's say I come back out of my coma, I'm fine, I take control of everything. And then when I die, I go through probate again. So if you are divorcing and you don't want your soon to be ex to make those decisions, if you are single, this is important work to do. But also, there's, that whole saying, it's cheaper to keep her. And what we're seeing a lot of is we're seeing couples stay married, but yet
Mhm.
be single and in other relationships. So as long as you're married, again, you can put in your documents that your spouse is not the person to do your financial decisions and your healthcare decisions. So you can do that. That's another scenario where you'd want to do that. The other thing is we're seeing a lot of couples just be together but not get married. And in that case, it would be really important that you identify your significant other as to letting them make those decisions. And the other thing is, if you are married and you have a trust and you're divorcing, you know, you need to actually get trust revoked and get your own trust stated. I mean, there's some really intricate things that need to be done in this area. So
The
just
paperwork really
keep in
piles up.
mind that and it can be simplified. If you work with the right people, this whole process can be simple. If you understand it, it takes a little bit to get it, but it really can save time and money, but more importantly, heartache. That's really
Yes.
what it does, because then you have the people that you trust and that you love in control of the things that, your finances and your health. Don't leave that to chance. Don't let California dictate that, or a soon-to-be ex-spouse that you don't care for.
Yeah, and if I'm gonna take a moment to tug on heartstrings, I would go so far as to say, whatever you have, you don't have to be wealthy to do this, but what I would suggest as just a guy on the street is whatever you have, at least spend that money at least once to have your instructions in place. So should something happen to you, whether it's death, incapacitation, coma, etc., at least you're doing something to the benefit of your children. And if you're going to do it for someone, I like to imagine at least for the children, because they will probably suffer more than anybody else. Because if some relative dies and the wealth, if there's any at all, falls to the parents and they fight over it, the kids they have to see that in one way or another. And that could be really ugly. I mean, there's peaceful times, yes. I'm talking about the times when it doesn't happen. So if there was order of what happens, I like to imagine that's also a benefit to the children of the families who inherit that, because things are in place as opposed to the state consuming it. And if your kids are in their teens and 20s and they're talking to their parents, like, when's the state going to finally cut us a check? Because kids are sometimes, and it could be a long, 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 long time. And that's just stress. If it's going to be done, be done. And that's what I appreciate about what services you have, is that it gives the person who's paying you, let's call it what it is, they pay for this service, they're getting control. And they're getting control at a time when they probably don't have control. Coma, incapacitation,
Right.
death. So, I mean, to me, that sounds like a good idea. How do you say, no, I don't want control? I mean, I'm sure some people might think that, but for the most of us, how do they not think that? Now that they're aware, based on this conversation, they should call you or their attorney, but get it done just so it's done. That's how I
Right.
see it. Nobody wants to talk about it,
Right.
but
I agree. Yeah, I agree with percent. And, we talk about how expensive probate is and the time and the process. The thing that we haven't talked about is the cost of the family. And, I like to say, when our
exactly.
kids are young and they fight, what do? We tell them, don't fight. Stop. That's your brother. That's your sister. And without doing this planning, what you have in essence done is you've set your family, your children, to fight
Mhm.
as adults. Some of them might have spouses. They're
Mhm.
grieving. There's money on the table. And if you've got one of the kids that stayed at home with mom and took care of her to end of life and, all this stuff, there's like, I
Yeah.
should get more. No, you shouldn't. I mean, the biggest cost, in my opinion, is the cost of destroyed families and destroyed
Yeah.
relationships, where
Agreed.
doing this planning just takes all that off the table. You very specifically identify what you want to have happen,
Hmm.
who you want to get what. If you want to inherit something, you can put in it explaining your decisions. And when it comes to your healthcare decisions, oh my goodness, how wonderful to give your children, your trustees, or your agents the gift of knowing, yes, I don't want my life prolonged if I'm in vegetative state and there's really no chance of me coming back. Or no, keep everything plugged in. I want my life prolonged. Make these decisions in advance so that loved ones can have a easier time making those decisions. And I jokingly around, especially when I do workshops, and this gets back to dictating who gets what and when. how many of you are control freaks? Because I say I'm a reformed control freak, but a little bit of a control freak. And I say, well, if you let control things now, you can really make your kids crazy by controlling your money from the grave,
Yep, it is
because
what it
you
is.
can be very creative in a trust. You can put, yeah, you can put contingencies on it. They get this as long as, if you don't like I mean, hypothetically, I'm being
Mhm.
dramatic here, but if you don't like the guy that your daughter's dating, you can say, Susie's going to get her $50,000 distribution every year, so long as she never sees Johnny Wild again. And the
Ooh.
trustee has to make sure Susie's not seeing Johnny, or she gives up the 50 grand. I mean, I'm being, again, a little dramatic, but there are provisions you can put on there for sure, to carry out your wishes.
Yeah, it's your money. It's your
And
money, it's your house, it's your wealth, it's your
yeah,
it's your
there's just
stuff.
so many really cool things you can do.
Yep. Could you give the
Right.
people, I'm
Right.
sure
I
people
have
are
a
probably
client.
asking.
Uh, Go ahead.
I was gonna say the price real quick, because I'm sure people who will listen when they play this back, they're probably thinking this costs 20 grand, 10 grand. Could you give people just really quick? It's not the most important thing, but it's a legitimate concern I think viewers would have. Is there a rough range? I know it depends on what you have, but generally, could you kind of almost ballpark it so they have a sense? Is it, $30,000 process? Is it a $2,000 process? Roughly,
Sure.
in
Sure.
terms of the price.
And thank you for asking that, because there is the pricing is so different. I hear people say I can get everything for $1,000. That's a really affordable price, but do you really know that you're getting everything that you need?
People offer this for a
I've
thousand
seen
dollars?
anything from $1,000
Really?
to, huh?
They offer it. People can go
I
as
know
cheap as
it's
1,000?
personally, but well, there are people out there that'll do that, but the documents may not necessarily be done by an attorney.
Oh,
They, you know, right. Yes. So you have to be careful. You get what you pay for. I've seen them, 2,500 to 5,000, as high as $8,000 for the same document package. And
wow.
I think one of the bigger obstacles, yeah, I think one of the bigger obstacles is typically what a law firm's going to do is they're going to hand you a packet and say, here, complete this information and bring it into me. And they're going to ask everything. And it's just overwhelming.
Hmm.
So the way we work and the way our law firm does it, our law firm, if you were to walk in and meet with the attorney directly, the law firm they've been doing this for 30 years. They've done over 50,000 trusts. They're in probate court defending people, or they're meeting and talking with
50,000?
clients. So this is their
Whoa.
expertise.
Wow.
Huh?
50,000?
What did you say?
50,000?
No, 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 not 50.
No, 50,000.
No, no, not 50,000. No, 50,000 trusts. Yes, over the years. Yes, they've done at least that many. That's a kind of an older number too.
Wow.
But yeah, so they know what they're doing. So if you were to walk in and work with the attorney as a couple and do all the work with the attorney from A to Z, our law firm charges $3,600, which includes the retitling of one property. And
Wow.
working with me, because you're not working with yeah, and that's a road, and it's very well worth it. But in working with me, I have preferred pricing, because you're not working with the $550 attorney, an hour attorney. That same exact package is going to be $2,300. So there's a significant discount there. And then if you're an individual, it's just you. Normally with the law firm, it's $2,600, but working with me, it's $1,950. So for $1,000, all this important work done, and ultimately doing this work now is going to save thousands and thousands of dollars if
Hmm.
you were to go through probate. So very reasonable. And it's written by an attorney. You have a relationship with the attorney, because it's part of our process. You will talk to the
Nice.
attorney. You will get legal advice that's very specific to you. And just the quality of the are incredible. And the quality of your documents is so important, because you don't know, well, you'll never know if it's a problem or not, because you won't be here. But what we see is people will pull a document off the internet, LegalZoom, Susie Orman or whatever, and they'll fill in the blanks, and they won't execute it right, or they forget to title their assets. and there's problems. There are problems. And sometimes, even though there's some documents put in place, probate still happens. We had a client a while ago, and we had all the stuff funded into the trust that they told us. It turned out that there was an account with like over $300,000 in it that he forgot he had, and he forgot to tell us, and he forgot to title it into the trust. So everything that was in the trust bypassed probate, but that $300,000 account had to go through probate because he didn't title it. He forgot about it. I mean, good
Oops.
problem to have, right?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. And one thing I would offer up to everybody, especially if you have a trust right now, make sure your home is owned by the trust. We time where people say, yeah, mine's owned by the trust. And maybe you originally had it titled into the trust, but if you went through a refinance, your mortgage company has to pull that house out of the trust so they can do the refinance, and they're
Put it back
supposed
in.
to put it back in. All right. Now, I would recommend contact Tony. He'll give you a complimentary property profile to tell you what the county shows the title house. It's so worth it because we see it all the time where people think their home is owned by the trust and it's not. For some reason, the county did it that way, and this will be a problem. The other thing for anybody who either has a parent, somebody who's passed away, upon the passing, if you're a married couple, upon the passing of one of the spouses, you need to do something called an affidavit of death. Affidavit of death,
Mm-hmm.
county know that your spouse has passed away so that they can transfer the property into your name. So you now own all of it. And you really should do a date of death appraisal. And you can reach out to Tony to get more information on this so that you can get what's called a step up in basis on that property to help you with capital gains. So there are a few things you need to do in preparation for that. I recently delivered a trust for a gal. She'd been widowed for 19 years. And she never did the affidavit of death. So the law firm had to prepare, in addition to the title change, they had to prepare an affidavit of death for her. And that what it did is it transferred the property from his name to her name. And then they prepared the paperwork to get the property from her name into the trust. If we didn't do that, only 50% of that home value would have bypassed probate, which means 50% would have gone through probate, which obviously would have encumbered the property. So there's
Correct.
something to really be aware of.
Yeah, there's
So reach out to Tony, get a complimentary property profile.
there's a part of our job, yours and mine. There's a lot of the people involved in real estate have certain things that are congruent. And in this conversation with you and I, should somebody be prepared? Let's say, again, if they were to contact you and say, okay, here's what I got. Let's get this done. Let's get it safe. Let's get the control in order. If something happens, not that it makes my job easy, but it's easier because then if let's say there's a death, we say, well, look, here's documentation. There's all these forms we have to fill out. There's a process. So if you actually did love the person who died and left something to you, we're human. You're going to be, at least for a while, an emotional wreck. So my job my side is to contact someone like yourself, look at their documentation, get all the real estate forms we need, make sure we, dot our I's and cross our T's so that we can close that process. If they left 3 properties and they're supposed to go to, 2 go to John, 1 goes to Jane, and they're married, we want to make sure everything is in order so we can put that to rest so they can go on with their lives with the least amount of stress, with the least amount of problems. When they don't go to someone like you, and then I have to work with them to deal with things, right. Boy, it's a lot to juggle. Can be done, but it's a lot to juggle. It's a lot of stress. Not on me. I know my processes. I'm just looking at the client when they're not happy with me. They're just upset or angry. Oh, I can't believe they left me or they're gone. And sometimes we have to be the very quiet salesman and say, sign here. This is what you're supposed to do. This is what we do next, just to move it along. so that we can close everything and people can go on with their lives. But stocks and bonds and airplanes and boats, that's another thing. But going to someone like you, I'll summarize it like this. I would like to pretend that when someone goes to someone like you with what you offer, they can take whatever's in their world and say, if I divorce, coma, incapacitated, can't make decisions, dementia, whatever, or die, here's what I want to happen. And
Right.
when it's all filled out and they sign, they go on with their lives. Now, they can tell their spouse if they're involved, but people are people and they're going to do what they're going to do. So if something's happening, if you're starting to go under and that's the last time you're going to be conscious, maybe for a half a second, you might tell yourself, you know what? Everything's covered, everything's handled. I don't have to worry. Because what you don't want to do, I would imagine, is you start going blackout for whatever reason. And you don't want to think, oh no, wait, I have to stay awake 10 more seconds so I can tell my wife what to do with the money or what to do with the house, or oh, I have 7 more properties I forgot to tell her about. Whatever. You would want to have that. You would not want to go under or die as you're going out with the thought of, oh no, I mean, that just sounds terrible. So at least if you're going under and you're conscious for a few seconds, at least you could think to yourself, if it helps, amongst your other thoughts, you know what? I don't have to worry. They're covered. They're safe. That's why people buy life insurance. That's why people go to you for the probates and the trusts to get everything in place. So moving forward with the rest of their lives, they can have some clarity because there's plenty to worry about in life.
Yeah. It's the peace of mind that you've done the work so that you are not worried about it. And that ultimately is what doing work does, you peace of mind. The other thing that I would offer up, especially for, I'm a baby boomer, we're baby boomers, and we've got our parents that are aging, and some of us have lost a parent and we have one left. Um, Check to make sure that your parent or your in-laws or whoever, that they have an estate plan and a trust, and that their
Yes.
property is owned by the trust. Because if it's not, then that's going to involve either your spouse or you to get involved. And you want to do it while they are of sound mind.
Yes.
I have a client, and she's caring for both of her parents, and they both actually have got they're in stages of dementia, and they don't have a trust. It's not owned by a trust. She knows it's going through probate. There's nothing she can do about it, because by the time the thought that she had of doing this, it was too late. Her parents weren't of sound mind. So I would encourage everybody to put this as the top things need to do, and also, especially during this time where we're having to stay at home, use this time to get your financial house in
Yes.
order. Make sure
Yes.
you're taking a look and you've got all of your finances all in one place. Check your beneficiary forms. Make sure you have primary beneficiaries and you have contingent beneficiaries, because if you have that has a beneficiary form and there's nobody identified or the wrong people identified, but if you don't have anybody identified, then that asset will pass through probate. So you want to make sure that is taken care of, and do this important work. Just get your financial house in order. Life is uncertain, and that's certain, right?
That is true. What I like to tell
We've
people,
covered we've
yeah,
covered a lot.
we did. What I like to let people know is, it's not like someone's excited to have a trust and have a trust and a will and estate planning,
Right.
but if you don't do it, at least do it for the peace of mind who we leave behind. It's not like you're paying forever. At least pay once
Right.
to get it done. And also too, let's be honest, some people know how their kids are. And I had a client, he passed years ago, but I found out from a mutual friend, he knows how his daughter was, and he had money,
Mhm.
and he worked, and he invested, and he had money, but he knew if something happened, his daughter would get drunk with wealth and power. So he had his money set up in a tiered
Mm.
distribution system that she would get um, enough money to pay off the mortgage, to cover the taxes, so she can live in the actual house free. there was an executor that made sure the bills were covered for gas, electric, and her phone bill and insurance and stuff like that. So there was someone to maintain her so she can just live on nothing. And she had a certain allocation of money per month so she can easily buy all the food she wants and some entertainment. But every year she got a pretty good sized check. For the next like 5 years, it got a little bit bigger. And then I think when she turns 30, she gets the whole windfall. So you have this massive wealth. You get some chunks of it that grow incrementally, because the idea is as you get older, you get more mature. And he figured, 30 years old, that's about as good as it's going to get. And she was 24 when this happened. So he had a tiered system. He made sure the house was paid for, the car was paid for. She had food, fuel, expenses. She can live very nicely. And then she got every January a big check to do whatever. So I think the theory in that case, using a service like yours, for example, is he set up something over, let's see, she's 24, 36, 30 years old. So it was a 6-year plan that when you get that big check, you kind of get used to the money. So when the big money showed up, you're like, oh, now it's a big chunk of money. You're good to go. Because by 30, you think maybe she probably maybe be married and have kids, and that would make the most sense to have, many millions of dollars fall in your lap one day. But in the beginning, it was like, 10 grand, 20 grand, 35 grand, something like that in stages. So then he knew that and something did happen and he's covered. And that was a great lesson that I learned. I'm like, whoa, that's smart. So you can structure it how you want. There's lots of lessons. I'm sure people want to
You're
talk to
controlling your
you.
money from, yeah,
You're calling
yeah,
the
you're
shots from the
controlling your
grave.
money from the grave.
Yeah. So Kim,
Yeah.
I know there's a lot, I know there's a lot we can talk about, and you probably have a lot of stories. So I would encourage people, if they just call you on this number right there, give you a call, have a conversation, a discreet conversation. They can talk about, well, here's what I have. And, maybe they do want to hear examples of why they really should pull the trigger and do this. Does it cost anything to have a conversation with you? It's free, right? They could just call you up,
It's absolutely free.
right? And
Mhm.
we're not trying to sell anything. I get nothing out of this. I brought you here because I know the benefit of you. I also know you're a good person and that
Thank
you're
you.
very comfortable in what you're doing, and
Thank you.
you're very welcome. That's why I wanted you here, because people who miss this live broadcast will play it back. It's not exciting, but it is smart. Like I said twice early
Mhm.
on, if you don't talk to Kim or don't talk to anybody and you're building your wealth, when you go, someone else takes control. I don't think anybody likes anyone else taking over the control of their life, because when you're incapacitated or dead, someone else is going to control and steer your life, and I don't like the sound of that. So I would want my clients at least to entertain a phone call with you and see if maybe they can set themselves up to be as safe as possible, so that they don't leave destruction when they die. So it's a scary conversation. It's not a happy conversation, but it could be made as comfortable as possible if they were to talk to an attorney, or at least start with you, because you're here talking about it.
Mhm.
Yep.
Absolutely. So if any just has questions, wants to dig a little further, uh, and just give me a call. There's never a charge. And then when talking with the law firm, our law firm doesn't charge by the minute. Everything's a package deal. And, I can talk pricing with you. I can talk need with you and answer your questions. And at that time, if you decide you want to move forward and set up an appointment to get things going and give your family the gift of staying out of the California probate system, then we'll take that step. So I
Yeah.
do this because I love it and I want to help people. And,
Yeah.
you know, protect those hard-earned assets. So
I want to
thank
help
you.
them. I want to help them get the asset. You help protect them. So I'll help them buy the house,
Yes.
and you help them keep the house when something happens. I mean, we hope it doesn't happen, but if it does, because raise your hand if you're going
Right.
to die one day, then you're a qualified client.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
if you're going to die one day, and that's going to be all of us, it's not happy, but it's true. So let's have them have a conversation with
Mhm.
you, get everything in order, so the mind could be clear. So, folks, first of all, Kim, thank you. I'm sure there's lots of stories you have,
Thank
but
you.
I'm glad you're here to share what you know. So folks, if you have questions, please either write an email or text or call Kim. Have a conversation with her. If you have thoughts of selling or buying, you can talk to any real estate agent you want. I'm here to help. My office is in Irvine. I work everywhere in Orange County. I bring in more guests, more value. I want to be helpful. But if I can help you sell or buy, let's have a conversation. You could write me an email to me. You could text me. You could call, whatever it takes. So, Kim, thank you very much. You're a fantastic person. I'm glad you're here. And we have to have you on again.
Thank you.
I think we have a conversation about the elderly. There was a few things you touched on I thought were, ooh. So we're going to have you come back another time. We'll schedule. So everybody, please check this website right here. If you want to know what's coming up next, this is where you want to go. And again, this is Kim's phone number. Call, text,
Yes, thank
email
you.
her. Okay. So, Kim, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And everyone watching, thank you for being here. Like, share, subscribe, comments, questions. The video recording of this, when you leave a question or a message, it'll let me know. Feel free to reach out to me. If you need her information, I can share it with you. Check back again with us. I'm Tony Babarino with Remax Premier Realty. My office is in Irvine. I live and work in Orange County. And Kim can help you get everything right to protect your assets because the state should not be in control. You should be. So, Kim, thank you. We'll see you again. We'll talk soon.
Agreed.
Fantastic. Okay, so thanks everyone. Be safe, be well, and I really hope everybody is staying, safe and healthy. And we'll all see each other in person really soon. It's almost over. Hopefully before Christmas. Anyway, thanks, Kim. Thank you so much. Thank you. You've been fantastic. Okay, bye everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.